Good evening, everyone. I have expectations. Like, I expect the things that I own, like my vehicle or my phone, which I remember to put on silent, and my phone service or my coffee maker to work, so long as they're properly maintained and for a reasonable amount of time, but I expect them to work. Uh, in dismay, I expect traffic to use their blinker. I expect food that I order at a dining establishment to be thoroughly cooked because food poisoning is not part of a balanced diet. I expect that being behind this pulpit will never fail to bring me both joy and a lot of butterflies. I expect, and you expect. Hopefully, you expect something from me behind this pulpit, that the words that I bring will have some measure of spirit, that you'll leave with something truly heard, and I hope to deliver on those expectations. You expect of your employers and your friends and your family, your beloveds, your pets, your baristas, you expect. And it's okay to have those expectations because otherwise we'd all be free to be jerks drinking bad coffee, and we can't let the coffee be bad. We can't. It's okay to have expectations. So long as we reconcile, they won't always be met. Why would they? And why would a Persian king be appointed by God to build him a temple? That's what the Persian king Cyrus believed so much that he proclaimed it in his first year of reign. That proclamation being the proclamation inviting the remnant of Israel to return home. Sorry, had to make some adjustments. My eyes aren't getting younger. So there we go. He even had it in writing. He commanded that any surviving Hebrew scattered must be aided by their neighbor in their return journey home. He wrote it in a letter and sent it forth. He was confident. Now, whether or not he was chosen by God or whether his conflated ego just made it into the pages of Scripture, that's not what I'm here to debate. But I can't help but wonder if this is how the remnant of Israel expected their return trip home to begin, appointed and blessed by the king of their conquerors. But all the same, the remnant returns. Not all, mind you. Ezra accounts for 42,360, not counting servants and singers and horses and mules and camels. I don't know why they would be part of the census. Oh, and donkeys. Didn't make that count as well. All the same, in the year 538, King Cyrus decrees the Israelites can return home. And a year later, their caravans embark. And then a year after resettling into the area, an altar of sacrifice is completed. And construction begins on a new temple. And then about a year after that, their work is halted and halted and halted again and again for 15 years. Political action and physical threats keep the materials piled on the ground and the remnant of Israel hesitant to rebuild. I am certain that's not how the remnant expected their divinely blessed reconstruction efforts to go. I have expectations. In dismay, I expect Siri to hear me. It's part of Apple's software that was introduced 10 years ago. It's their little voice recognition software. You tell it, hey Siri, and it should do things. The technology of the microphone was invented in 1887. And Alexander Graham Bell's phone predates the microphone by 1 year. So with a cumulative over 100 years of technological development, why does Siri not respond when random bits and phrases phonetically are fought? Why does Siri respond? Sorry, why does Siri respond when random bits of phrases are phonetically very far away from, hey Siri? What is it for? I expect my dear family's cat to reliably wake me up at 5 a.m. with a gut check, begging for his stomach to be filled. And then I expect him to nag at his brother while I make coffee first, because 5 a.m. is very early to be up, but very late for the cat's, in the cat's opinion, second dinner. A situation that is a problem for the both of us. For Zechariah, there was a problem. Things weren't going as planned. And the people had been in exile for 70 years. And 3 years into their homecoming and restoration, and now there's opposition. And again, not some grumbling and complaining. No, again, political blockading and physical, literal threats on their lives. That's not what happens when God promises restoration, right? Or salvation. That's how it goes. So God raised prophets to encourage the workers. Zechariah, again, being one of them, working alongside Haggai, making known the word of the Lord, circa 520. Now, his book, or at least the book that we have, titled Zechariah, is mired with elusive imagery. And there is no sequential order, really. Chapters mirror chapters, but not like one after another. And then there are sections that feed into other sections. There is the Lord, there is the angel of the Lord, there's the Messiah, there is Judah and Zion and a lot of other countries. There are bows and arrows, lightning and thunder, and 2 winged women like storks carrying a basket with a baby in it that's supposed to be like evil incarnate, and it's going to drop off at a city. It's weird. And there are expectations. Now, just before our passage of focus, at least that being chapter 9, Joshua did read this. The people appeal to the Lord, and they petition, should we go on mourning as we did in exile? Which is to say, should we continue the festivals that we did because we were away from home? Which is really them asking, are we still in exile here? In response, God calls out his people. When you fasted and mourned in the 5th and 7th months for the past 70 years, was it really for me you fasted? And when you were eating and drinking, were you not just feasting for yourselves? Israel's history of neglect for the Lord's will is condensed and made plain. Their reason for exile. I'm not sure that is the response the Hebrew people expected. But God has always had expectations for those he calls theirs and those that call by God. The people didn't live up to those divine expectations. This was the restoration of God's own, and there was no space for decrepit foundations. Still, they're human. We're human. The people need reassurance. And so, concluding Zechariah's book, chapters 9 through the end, are a series of prophecies depicting the coming Messiah and the coming kingdom. And they are expected to instill a sense of hope embodied. The kind of hope that produces action, the kind of action that rebuilds a temple. And there's a donkey. Now I ponder the reaction of the people who heard Zechariah's prophecy, their Messiah coming on a donkey. Did their minds linger back to the Bereshit and remember Israel's blessing to his own son Judah when he says he will tether his donkey to the vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He will wash his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. There's more. thought this was apt. Or did the donkey speak for itself? Like, not literally, but it's happened. A donkey wasn't a strange vehicle for their times nor their history. Verses in Judges allude to or articulate explicitly of donkeys being vehicles for their king and their kin. Or was it the wordplay? There are three words used to name a donkey in Hebrew, at least in the Hebrew Bible. And they are Hamor, Atan, and Ayer. I'm sure I butchered one of those. Kenneth Way, in his 2010 article, Donkey Domain, Zechariah 9:9, and Lexical Semantics. It's an aggressive read. Navigates the surprisingly complex. It gets better. I was really nervous about putting this in. You're going to have to stick with me on this one here for a little bit. Navigates the surprisingly complex linguistic forms surrounding Zechariah's prophesied mount, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And he concludes in his paper, this is where I really need you to stick with me on this. Instead of the very popular translations, donkey, colt, and foal of a donkey, it is suggested that Zion's king is riding on a donkey, but not just any donkey. He's riding on a jackass, but not just any jackass. He's riding on a purebred jackass. Thank you for sticking with me. The purity of the royal mount may in fact be the primary focus of Zechariah 9:9. If you want to read the paper, I'll get it to you. It's dense. Zion's king comes not on the usual royal means of transportation associated with military conquest in Zechariah 9:10. Rather, Zion's king comes on a purebred jackass, which is a royal mount associated with peace. And he will speak shalom to the nations rather than elitism or conquest. I wonder, both, I ponder. Now, following the Messiah's entrance, Ephraim's chariots and Jerusalem's horses are cut off. The bow of war will be cut off. Prisoners are liberated, and to the stronghold the prisoners are commanded to return, and they are restored double. Then Judah is bent as a bow, and Ephraim is not. They are the arrow. Zion's sons become like a warrior's sword. The people are made ready to fight. For me, it's difficult. It's a difficult pattern to grasp, to have the instruments of war cut off and then to be made ready for battle. And perhaps that was the case for the remnant yearning to rebuild. I can't say for sure, but I'm confident these prophecies set an expectation in the hearts of the Israelites for what their coming Messiah would be like and what they would do. Ponder then, 400 and some change years later, as a once carpenter turned prophet makes his entrance into Jerusalem. What shaped the people's expectation for this man enough to lay palm branches at the hooves of his beast, a donkey, as he made his way through the street? Was it his miracles? Was it his teachings? Or did they just know he was the Messiah? Sure, we have textual hindsight. But I fathom that having lived in Christ's day, that one's reasons for laying the palm branches down may have varied from individual to individual. The Messiah comes and comes in peace. Again, palm branches are laid before him, a symbol of praise and also one of who is the highest. And the crowds chant, Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Jesus came in peace. But the people weren't their own and hadn't been for some time. Israel's closest reprieve from their conquerors, if I'm understanding history correctly, was the Maccabean revolt, something in the Apocrypha we don't quite touch on a whole lot. Kind of led to their autonomy under the Hasmonean dynasty, which That only lasted for about 100 years, and again, autonomy. Not quite the same. That led from Alexander the Great and then reclaimed by the Roman general Pompey, putting the Roman rule where we are in Jesus' day, over Jerusalem. Was this Messiah going to liberate them from Rome by force? Would it be a bloodless coup? There was anticipation, there was expectation. I have expectations. Think. Eschatology is the broad word for the theological systems and dogmas and ideas concerning the end times. Its origins for the ideas, not the word itself, are biblical. Zechariah, Daniel, the Gospels, a number of epistles, and Revelation, more, all deal with matters of a Messiah. And the texts concerning the visions of the Messiah are pre and post Christ. And despite Christ himself not knowing the time appointed, we have a habit, a desire, a yearning to find it out, to know when. When is God coming back? When is Christ returning? When will we all transition from these very broken epochs known as humanity on earth and join the heavenly chorus in the New Jerusalem, navigating those streets of gold? We have expectations for that return. Perhaps a rapture, perhaps 1,000 years of God's reign. God will come out of the clouds, and each generation has its own version of an antichrist, sometimes several, depending on who you talk to, a dragon and or a serpent for whom God will crush under their sandal. Zechariah's prophecies are disorienting and strange, even by biblical standards. But the core of Zechariah's prophecies linger on expectation. The remnant's expectations for what their restoration was going to be like, and God's continued expectations for the righteousness of his people unto others. I don't think the donkey is the point. Now, I'd take it back to chapter 7, wherein God asks of his people, was it for me? Spoiler alert, Jesus rose from the dead. And we who await the coming of Christ again, if we expect God, what do we expect his response to us to be? What do we expect of our Messiah on that day and forward? And what shapes our hopes, our anticipations, our expectations? Those are your questions for your table time. Thank you.